It ain't easy being a podcast champion, but I got a song stuck in my head. We are the champions, my friends, and we'll keep on fighting to the end. We are the champions. We are the champions. That's right. We're fucking making championship titles. Welcome back to Weekend Social Builds.
The champions of the world.
Welcome back to Weekend Social Builds. I'm the Chiseler. Thank you so much for joining us. This episode is the episode that I've wanted to make ever since we started doing this on the channel. Today, we are making championship titles out of White Claw tabs. Now, for those of you who do not know, the Weekend Social features the Husky Weight Tag Team Podcast Champions of the World. And why is that? Because, ladies and gentlemen, we have the belts to prove it. I'm going to be the first person to admit, having belts made out of the tops of alcoholic beverages is a little bit absurd. But that's the whole point of the Weekend Social. It's over-the-top production. It's good friends getting together, having a few drinks, telling embarrassing stories, and hopefully, by the time they leave, they feel like the champions that they are. And I'm really honored today to be sharing with you the build of the Watcher, our fifth inductee into the Podcast Champion stable. He will be the Intercontinental Podcast Champion. But first, let me show you one of the first two belts that we made, my belt. I want to highlight exactly how that was done. Across this belt, you can see 313 White Claw tabs went into the making of this belt. To get those tabs, either myself, my friends, my wife, drank White Claws, and the tabs were collected in this bottle here. Once I had enough White Claw tabs, I began sorting them. And I recommend sorting them if you choose to do something like this. I don't recommend doing something like this, by the way. But I sort them in Ziploc bags. And you can see I have got tons of White Claw tabs, all color sorted so that I can use them on a belt. Once I have enough tabs, I began thinking about how do I define the persona. Now, during the case for the belts, the Watcher told us what his belt needed to look like. It's an Intercontinental title. It's going to be on snakeskin. It's going to have Aztec fake gold, and it's going to highlight, instead of money claw tabs, it's going to highlight bottle caps. Now, any podcast title has to have White Claw tabs on it, but we're going to focus on bottle caps. And then I had some follow-up conversations after we told the Watcher that he was going to be the recipient of the belt. Here's what he said. He wants to have a spinner belt. And when I said, okay, well, does it need to have a car horn too? He said that that is a requirement that plays La Cucaracha. And he wants us to play up the Latino feel. So, okay, he asked, I'll do my best. So let's look at what his belt is going to look like. Now, I love the fact that he mentioned Eddie Guerrero. His belt is iconic. He was a great wrestler. So I'm going to have a more rectangular Eddie Guerrero style shaped belt. You can see in the center, there's going to be a metal plate that's going to sit underneath that center disc like this. This is going to spin. The edges of that plate are going to be fancy decorative edges. And then instead of having two edges like this that are side by side the same size, this plate is going to be a bit larger. So I'll have to make one of those. That center plate is supposed to spin. So you can see I'm going to have a Lazy Susan base underneath, and it's going to spin that way. And then underneath there, we've got to have that sound effect device. Now, I did find a sound effect device we're going to try out. This is off of Amazon. It's like $19. I'll put the link in the description. It's not an affiliate link, not a sponsor. But I saw this. It's meant for like greeting cards. You can see there's a little button there. There's a speaker, and then USB, and it recharges. So the Watcher is going to have to plug in his belt. I'm so freaking happy about this. So also we've got the boards that are the base for the original plaques. I'm going to have to manufacture a couple more. To make sure that we had bottle caps that have good flat tops, I just went ahead and ordered a pack of gold ones, and it'll help me keep down on all the spraying I've got to do. I've got this metal plate here. I've got the center disc. We've got a couple of extra bottle caps. I have got to do some shopping. We're going to be going to the fabric store. We're going to be picking up some faux snakeskin. Need to get some more adhesive. But at that point, we're ready to build and we can start putting this thing together. I'm so excited for this episode, guys. I hope you enjoy this build. Let's get to it. We're planning to release this video at the same time as episode 44 when we will be giving the watcher his belt, which means I've got 2 episodes I got to get out the door before I can get this thing done. I went ahead and created a template for the center plate and traced the outline onto the aluminum sheet. This aluminum sheet's going to be the base plate for the center disc that's going to spin. I've got all my reference lines and where the attachments are going to be placed marked out, and then I shaded the outside edges so I could see the final design and know exactly where I was going to be cutting. While I was working with the sheet of aluminum, I realized it's not sturdy enough to support the weight of the center disc and everything that's going to be in the middle of the belt. So I used my trusty Japanese pull saw to cut out a 12 by 12 square of 0.5 millimeter thick underlayment, which is going to give the belt a little bit more structure and support, and it's also going to allow me to do some cool design work a little bit later on. To make this happen, I've got to drill some pilot holes so that I can mount that sheet of aluminum to the backing sheet of wood. These bolts are not only going to hold the structure together, but I'm going to use decorative bolts just to give it a little bit more flair and authenticity. Once I had the pilot holes marked and measured out, I first drilled through the sheet of aluminum at each marked point, going very slow to make sure that the drill bit didn't skip around. Once those holes were drilled, I used the sheet as a template to drill the holes through the wood. Then it was time for me to cut out the edges for the aluminum sheet. I used a combination of metal cutting pliers and scissors, going very slowly so that I had nice clean edges and didn't cut the shit out of myself. Aluminum gets razor sharp when you cut it, so I'm using a glove in my left hand to hold the piece and going very slowly around the outside edges to make sure I had good clean lines. This is going to be the marquee piece of the belt. Any nicks or dings are going to stand out like a sore thumb. I'm trying really hard here to have good clean lines. Here's a better view of the plate, the center plate. After I've cut the aluminum sheet, you can see I've got a little bit of touch-up work to do, some small little nicks and dings that I've got to file out and sand out, and of course a sticker to take off, but we'll get to it. Next up, I'm going to be tracing this outline onto the wooden square and then using a jigsaw or the Japanese pull saw to cut out the matching wood piece that goes underneath. And I've got a damn splitter. Oh, see that guy? Yikes. Once I had the outline drawn onto the piece of wood, I used an X-Acto knife and went around the outline to prevent any tear out on the front, and then I taped the back using painter's tape to prevent tear out on the back. I found the process of cutting with the jigsaw much easier than cutting the sheet of aluminum, and I went very slow to make sure I had good curves and nice clean lines for the wood piece underneath. At this point, I need to figure out the dimensions of the plaques that are going to be to the left and to the right of the center plate. To do this, I laid everything out on a long sheet of paper. This is going to serve as a template for what the belt is going to look like. This template is going to be used to cut the fabric later on, but it also helps me measure out the dimensions of those left and right inner plaques. Once I had figured out the dimensions, I went ahead and drew them out on some scraps of 0.5 millimeter thick underlayment. I used my Japanese pull saw to cut them out, and before I cut, I made sure to score the lines so I didn't have any blowout on the edges. I'm going really slow here to make sure I have good, sharp, clean lines, and then once they were cut, I took them over to my disc sander and rounded the edges off to give them a consistent look with the other plaques. I laid everything back on the original template just to make sure there weren't any changes that need to be made. And once that was done, I went ahead and rounded off the edges and began to cut out what the belt was going to look like, the fabric, and that's going to be used for the template later on. I'm going extremely slow here and applying a lot of pressure. I want good, clean, consistent lines. I do not want any mistakes on this paper template to be replicated on the snakeskin fabric when I use it to cut it out. Now that I've got that template done, I can get to answering a question I had about the design and the detail work on the aluminum sheeting. I glued some scrap pieces from the work that I had done earlier and did the same design in each one. I wanted to test out my metal engraver, my Dremel tools, and some hand tools and how a line and some deep cutting would work. I found that the engraver does really good for detail, but not so good for deep cutting. The Dremel is great for deep cutting, but not so good for detail. And the hand tools, like the drill, good for deep cutting as well. So I've got some options here to play around with. I also need to answer the question how I'm going to mount the center disc to the Lazy Susan hardware. I'm cutting out a 6.5-inch diameter circle that's going to be glued to the center disc, and then I can mount that to the Lazy Susan. we'll give it a try and see how it works. So we're making some really good progress here. I want to give you a closer look of how far we've come along. We've got the main components of this belt structure pretty much done. I've cut out a template in paper. I'm going to use this as the template when I cut the fabric of the belt. So the white part is going to be the actual fabric. You can see the plaques laid out with the bottle caps kind of cascading to the center plate and the center disc. I have a couple of decisions I need to make. First, I need to figure out the bottom where I'm going to have the watcher's name spelled out. I don't know if I'm going to stencil this in on top of the metal. I don't know if I'm going to drill through the metal to kind of have more of a template and have something underneath. I'm still TBD on how that's going to work. Second thing that's TBD, if you look at this is the paper template that I used to design the belt. You can see the world icons on the left and right. I don't know if I'm going to make those out of White Claw tabs. I don't know if I'm going to be drilling through the metal itself so that I have something underneath. That's another TBD. Something that I do know is at the top, you can see I've got this little hole cut out here. At the top, this is going to be underneath the metal on the wood piece. And so it's going to be a nice, good quality. I'm going to get it printed out. Good quality logo. It's going to have laminate on the top. It's going to pop. It's going to look really shiny. The disc, you can see I've got it placed on here. It will spin. I have not mounted anything, but underneath this, I've got a supporting piece of wood that will go underneath that. And then there is the Lazy Susan that is going to be mounted there. I've drilled the holes. I just haven't put anything in place. This center hole is where the wiring and all the mechanical devices are going to be run through, so it plays through the center plate. Still got some decisions to make, but now we get into the artistic design elements of the belt. This is the part that I'm really excited for, so check it out. My first idea for mounting the spinning disc in the center was that plywood circle with countersunk nuts and then attaching a square base to the bottom. But after playing around with it for a while, I just found that it just didn't work. So then I thought of using this deadly looking circle cutter that I just bought from Harbor Freight and mounting it on my drill press to make a better base. But unfortunately, it didn't cut all the way through the wood. So I picked up my Dremel and tried to finish the cut by hand. I tried the drill bit, I tried the saw attachment, and after about an hour of messing with this thing, I finally get a hole that I could put a jigsaw blade through. But the problem was the circle was too small to mount on the Lazy Susan. So strike two. You know, sometimes the best thing to do when you're dealing with a problem like this is to walk away and let the answer come to you. And the next day it did. I printed out a template for the disc and mounted it on a piece of 3/4 inch plywood, the same width as the Lazy Susan. Not only do I need this to mount to this spinning disc, but I've got to be able to mount it to the center plate underneath it too. So with the curves cut, I also had the center marked on the template so I could measure out exactly where to mount the Lazy Susan hardware so there'd be no wobbling. I drilled pilot holes using the drill press and then used a 1/4 inch Forstner bit to countersink the holes for the nuts to sit in. Now the added bonus of this shape is that I can easily mount it to the center plate underneath it by turning the wood by 45 degrees. This was the right approach. So after I got the first coat of paint on, I didn't have a definite plan of how I was going to cut the holes in the aluminum plate, so I decided to try out using a Dremel. First I used a saw attachment and cut along the outline, and then I used a drill bit and a sanding bit to clean up the edges. Now this wasn't the fastest method, but I was pretty happy with the results and how it looked, so I decided to do the same thing for the globes that would be on the left and right of the center plate. I transferred the outline of the globes to the center plate using carbon paper, and then I used the same process of using the saw attachment to cut along the outline and then cleaning it up with the sanding bit attachment so there would be no sharp edges. The other benefit of using this sanding attachment is that it helped me get good consistent curves on the left and the right globes. So once that was done, I used the wire brush just to make sure that there were no dents or dings. I got the position of the outer circles on the plywood base so that I could get the outlines, and you use carbon paper to transfer the design underneath the printout of the globes. Then I used paint pens to get a good blue base for the water on the globes. And then I put a top coat of blue glitter paint on top of it just to make the ocean stand out a little bit more. I was really happy with this effect. While the paint was drying, I moved on to the center disc. I used a circle cutter to cut out a ring that would be the top and bottom header for the center disc, and I used gold lettering to spell out Intercontinental at the top and Podcast Champion at the bottom. Once I had them cut out, I attached them to the center disc using super glue or CA glue. And now we move on to the White Claw tabs. Here at the Weekend Social Builds, we take quality control very seriously. These belts are made using our unique flat tab process, ensuring only the finest tabs are selected. The Watcher is the podcast's resident eye of providence. So once I found a design that I liked, I covered the printout with clear tape and then started to dissect the tabs into straight lines, curves, and rivets. Then I used those straight lines to create the horizontal lines of the pyramid, and I used the inside curves of the tabs for the vertical lines of the pyramid. I used line pieces again to get the eye outline and a rivet for the tear duct, and curves for the lashes, and I used a black paint pen to detail a bottle cap for the iris. I created the outer edge of the pyramid using 2 layers of hole tabs and then more straight lines for those radiating beams emanating from the pyramid at the top and bottom. About a year ago, White Claw started making iced teas, and it just so happens that all of their tabs are made of Aztec fake gold. So we have a buttload of them, and they're going on the outer rim of the center disc. The Watcher wanted me to play up the Latino theme, so I thought I would use tabs to reflect the oak and laurel leaves on the Mexican flag, and then more Aztec fake gold to round out the inner ring. Moving on to the plaques, again keeping with the Mexican flag theme, I was going to put green on the left plaques and red on the right. I used the green tabs from Watermelon White Claws for the inner left plaque, and then I used lime tabs from the Natural Lime and Pineapple White Claws for the outer left plaque. For the inner right plaque, I used red tabs from Strawberry and Raspberry White Claws, and then for the outer right, I used the purplish tabs from Black Cherry. For both of the outer plaques, I have a design that I've used on our belts before, so I'm going to carry that forward to this belt. It's layered, it stands out, I like the design, but this time I'm going to add some bottle cap embellishment to the Watcher's belt to his request. And now getting back to the center plate, one of the requirements the Watcher had was that it needed to play sound, so I picked a couple of choice sound bites that would play from the belt and uploaded them to the sound device. Now, what's cool is that the aluminum plate is going to act like a resonator for the speaker. So to make that work, I drilled a hole for the speaker in the plywood base. Then I split the cord apart to make sure I knew the wiring length, and then I cut a hole in the baseboard with a jigsaw to place the sound effects circuit board and the activator button. I also had some images printed off at FedEx, not a sponsor, so I cut off the logo that's going to be at the top. Before I mount everything together, I want to make sure it's glued in place. Then I placed the metal plate back on the baseboard and screwed in the Lazy Susan. Now this is where the Lazy Susan design really shows its benefit. This installation was super easy. And once it was screwed in, I used epoxy to attach the center disc to the Lazy Susan. The last step is the belt strap. I used the template from earlier to cut out the belts out of fake snakeskin fabric. I drew an outline using a fabric pencil, and this fabric looks really good. The nice thing about this fabric too is that it stretches out really nicely. But the downside is that it's a thinner material, and I'm worried about the belt being able to hold the weight of the plate. So I'm going to be building an inner core. But first, I've got to pull out the iron and get rid of some really massive wrinkles that were in the fabric. There was a big crease in the center of the belt, so I used really low heat and an old t-shirt so I didn't damage the fabric at all. Now on to the inner core. White Claw tabs on the front, White Claw boxes for the core. I broke down 8 boxes and cut out the edges and used wood glue to hold them together. Now I'm going to make the second piece of the fabric a little wider than the template, and once I get the pieces together, I can cut off the excess. I put the inner core on the second piece to make sure it didn't go to the edge and I had the lines correct, and once I had the outline drawn and the piece cut, I glued the core to the back piece. For every other belt that I've made, I've left the edges without any sewing. So for this belt, I picked up a leather sewing kit. The link is in the description. And I used the hole chisel to punch through the fabric to sew the waxed thread through. Now, I sewed like the wind. And let me be honest, sewing these edges took forever. I seriously worked on this step alone for about 8 hours total. But once I got the hang of it, it not only looked better, but it went faster. And at the end of the day, I think it's going to be worth it. last stitch. Holy crap, that took too long. I've got 2 final things to do before putting it all together. The first is to punch holes for the snaps on the outside of the belt strap. I made a template out of another White Claw box so that everything lines up. And the final step is touching up the center plate with some decorative design. I used metallic sheen to create some rays shooting out from the center, and I put the owner's name on the bottom of the plate. Once that was done, it was finally time to Avengers assemble this mofo. I cut a hole for accessing the soundboard in the back of the belt, and I punched through the fabric for the bolts to go through, and then used epoxy to attach everything to the strap. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, another successful weekend social build. If you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, go ahead and click that like and subscribe button down there. Be notified of future videos when they're released, like this. A couple of final closing thoughts before we induct our newest podcast champion. Across this belt, 389 White Claws went into the making of this belt, along with 8 White Claw boxes that are inside the belt. It took me about 3 weeks to do over nights and weekends, and the thing that I underestimated the most was the sewing along the edge. I'm going to have to figure out a better way to do that, but overall, I'm pretty happy. There's a couple of final finishing touches that I need to put together before I give it to our newest podcast champion, but let's go ahead and skip right to that and introduce to you the Intercontinental Husky Weight Podcast Champion of the World, the Watcher. And there's only one way to do that: Video Bit Audio Podcast. Video Bit Audio Podcast. This is a Weekend Social Builds crossover event. Welcome to the Weekend Social. We got E-Money.
Hello.
And we got the Watcher, our newest champion of the Weekend Social. And if you look behind us, you can see the Husky Weight Tag Team Championship titles
Of the world.
Yes, and you can see behind me, that is the newest podcast championship belt. Now, before I unveil it, Watcher, I'm going to go ahead and give you some facts about your belt. 389 White Claw tabs went into the making of that belt. And let's give a quiet Weekend Social to all the livers that sacrificed themselves to make that belt
That was a lot.
a reality.
It was a lot.
And now, let me take a minute and reveal the Intercontinental Podcast Championship title.
I'm so excited. Dude.
I've got an unseen heart on.
Oh
right
my
now.
gosh.
There you go.
Oh my lord!
Fuck! Oh my god, that is amazing!
All right, now before I hand it over to you, Watcher, let me just demonstrate the features of this belt. All right. Now, per your request. All right.
This is
and all your
awesome.
requirements. Now, first, Money Claw tabs, like I said, are their unifying thread across all podcast championship titles, right? Now, second, we had to skin countless fake snakes to bring your belt to life. All right. Third, it's an intercontinental title, so it's very fitting. And fourth, Aztec fake gold all over this motherfucker. Fifth, you said that it had to spin. Motherfucker, it spins.
God, I love that sound.
Yep. Sixth, you asked me, you joked that it had to have a car horn. So I brought that to reality. And seventh, because you asked me to play up the Latino feel, we made that a reality too. Okay.
Is that who? Is that Ricky Martin?
Yeah, treasure.
Dude, that's
Treasure
hilarious.
of Mexico. Right. I'm gonna bring this closer so we can hear it. I've also included your catchphrase.
2021, you can be whatever you want.
And I've also included your theme music. So you can walk through.
Damn.
So you can walk around the house and fucking do that. And the inspiration behind this belt, Eddie Guerrero, we included his theme song.
My wife better watch out, or we're gonna have another kid while I'm wearing that belt.
Anal or pregnancy.
Hey, cheat to win. Cheat to win.
With your belt, what you do with your belt, it's a special thing.
Now, you asked for the Mexican car horn, but I also had to include.
God, you're gonna make me dance.
Yeah, there you go. Now, the last thing about, with that being said, you're gonna have to charge your belt.
Does it require charging?
It does.
Nice.
It's got a USB, and like I said, it's got the chiseler builds on the back.
Oh, look at all that fake
Nice,
snake
dude.
skin.
Fake snake skin.
Hell
Now,
yeah.
the other thing that I want you to know, your catchphrase is on here. It's 2021. You can be whatever you want, but it's not 2021 anymore. So it's 2022. You can be whatever you want, and I've included all the years right here, so you can make it whatever year you want and still have the same
Is
catchphrase.
it completely interchangeable?
Yes, completely.
Oh my
It's like
goodness.
the jigsaw puzzle.
It's like
every year.
It's a gift that keeps on giving.
So there you go. This is your belt, the Watcher Intercontinental Champion.
Oh my gosh. Can I?
Yeah.
May I? I've never been a champion of anything in my life.
You want me to help you out?
My entire life, my wife has told me I'm a loser. But
Not anymore, man.
can you help me? Help this Mexican out. Strap me in, big
Oh
boy.
my God, he is strapping you in though.
He is.
He's like, I need more buttons. He's like,
Yeah.
give me it.
Hey, you said you were a medium. That shirt's a large.
There we go.
You
There
know
you go,
that's
man.
what he's saying.
Oh my gosh.
Now, do you notice the Mexican flag there?
I see it now.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get laid so much by myself. Woo!
You've joined a brotherhood or a familyhood. Yes, try sitting down. I just wanted to see if you could sit down.
I'm trying.
Yeah, dude, mine's right there. I was wearing that tonight.
But I will say
that's much bigger. That's much bigger.
Well, I mean,
Pete, you literally put way more. Like, that's a big belt.
I'm not trying to compare.
What's up with that, dude?
I'm not trying to compare size or dick measure here, guys.
That's a really big belt.
Here's what I'm gonna say.
I mean,
It's a really big belt,
I mean,
dude.
I got some work to do right there.
He builds our belts based on dick size.
I didn't say anything about
Are you
that.
serious? I mean, that was a very big brand. I was
But-
like, what the?
Welcome to an elite brotherhood. You are family, and it couldn't go to a more deserving person. You're a great dude. I can't fucking say enough great things about you. It is so well deserved, and the more I know you, the more that I know that you deserve to own one of these belts around your waist. And with that, I think it's time to pop some bottles. Enough of this White Claw bullshit. I had to go to the store for a reason.
Oh, holy shiznarts.
While you're doing that, can I say I'm extremely humbled, and I want to thank everybody who voted, and I want to thank everybody who listened so far to the 44 episodes that we're in, because I can tell you it's been nothing but fun for me, and I guarantee it's been nothing for fun to all the other people who have been part of it, but I'm extremely humbled. And that is the most amazing fucking belt. Even, hear me out, Vince McMahon should be jealous of a belt like that.
That's a really nice belt, man.
It is fucking amazing.
He don't fuck around.
I love the fact that my catchphrase will just continue to evolve
Oh,
year
hell yeah.
after year.
Now, it means
Hell
the
yeah.
belt has a half-life. So if you make it to 2,000,
yeah.
I will build you another belt. But I'm just taking the under on that bet.
I don't know. According to my doctor, I may not make it there.
So.
I'm still sticking to the original belt, though.
I mean,
But
those belts are
your belt.
original.
With that.
He keeps on working with these things, and he's like, oh, I can make it better.
The more you play with it,
Yeah.
Well, Let's.
The better.
We'll save that. There we go. With that, guys.
My belt's going to be progressively better because I'm going to continue playing with it.
Well,
Cheers to that.
congratulations. Welcome, Intercontinental Podcast Champion, the Watcher.
Congratulations.
El Campeón!
Yeah. And thank you very much for watching.